Hey guys, DMS here. Today I have for you the Nothing Ear 1 and the competition. Let's check it out. So the Nothing Ear 1. These have been a bit controversial. Some YouTubers say they are phenomenal, the best thing they've ever heard, better than the AirPods Pros even, which I gave a lot of praise to, and others have said they are, well, nothing special. If you saw my initial impressions video, I wasn't particularly impressed. Does it really hold up? Is it as good as the AirPod Pro? No, definitely not. But is it as good as things in its price range? Well, maybe. We're going to talk about it. Let's start off with build and comfort. In terms of construction, the Ear 1 look absolutely fantastic. And I think that's kind of the main goal of the entire product. They wanted to look different from the competition. And that's definitely something that they accomplished. I haven't seen a product that looks like this before. The build, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily feel as sturdy as I would have hoped. A lot of things creak and move all over the IEM. It's not super solid. As far as the charging is concerned, they just magnet right into place, and while they are loose when they're seated on here, it doesn't seem to have any problems charging, so that's at least good. This case is definitely a magnet for scratches. It has not taken any time at all for scratches to start showing up on this case, and I really have babied this case. The nozzle is actually pretty short, but you can still actually fit standard tip sizes on here, which does help with the tuning a little bit, but you do get the sacrifice that because this nozzle is short, a lot of times tips can just pull right off and you'll be stuck with a tip in your ear, which, nightmare fuel. No one really wants that to happen. They are bulky, but they are reasonably comfortable. I can wear them for somewhere in the realm of an hour to maybe an hour and 20 minutes before I absolutely have to take them off my head, as long as I'm not listening to them. If I'm listening to them, I can only stand them for about a half an hour. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the text on the back is completely illegible, mostly just due to the fact that there's this dot pattern that the text is printed on. You can read some of it, the rest you can't. You can tell where it says manufactured in China, but that's almost it. The hinge mechanism is pretty much a direct copy of the AirPods Pro, like down to the finish and everything. There's the AirPods Pro hinge, you can see it right there. And there is the Nothing Ear 1's hinge. Kinda shameless, but they were going straight after the AirPods Pro anyway. The case is a similar thickness to the AirPods Pro, but it is definitely larger. Now, for the sake of comparison, here is the One More ComfoBuds Pro. The case feels a little bit cheaper as far as the lid and all of that is concerned, but they do lock in much more securely when they're charging. They do not move in this case unless you actually try to move them. They feel pretty solid, and the actual build quality of these IEMs is overall better. They fit more comfortably in my ear, and nothing moves, nothing creaks. It all feels extremely solid, not quite as glued together feeling as the Nothing Ear 1. But out of this whole roundup, build definitely goes to the P3s. The case quality, the build quality of the actual IEM is really better than anything I had lined up here, including they snap firmly and securely into the case closes softly, the attention to detail on the IEMs is fantastic, the microphones look good, they're nice and protected, there's not a big open hole there at the top. These definitely take the cake on build. I gotta say, these look great, but they have to do more than look good, they have to sound good and they have to perform well. So let's talk about. Now, software is a really important part of true wireless IEMs, and in the software for the Nothing Ear 1, you can do a few things. You can view the battery percentage on the case and on each IEM. You can customize the touch for the left and right ears, the controls, and you can also go in here and turn on the noise cancellation, set it to light, maximum. You can turn on the transparency mode, or you can turn everything off. And then you can choose between 4 equalizer settings: balanced, more treble, more bass, and voice. Unfortunately, there's no option for less treble and less bass because that is what these definitely need. There's a setting for a light and a dark theme, and you can also go in here to find your earbuds if they're missing or perform a software update. Next up is the One More ComfoBuds Pro. There's a wind mode, pass-through, which is your transparency mode, mild and strong noise cancellation, as well as many, many more built-in equalizer settings, though truth be told, they really don't need it besides sometimes bass reducer 2, which is a lighter bass reducer. I sometimes like to use that on these because you will get a little bit boomy bass occasionally if you're using a really bass heavy track, but other than that, these are pretty balanced sounding right out of the box, and their software is pretty great. But the real winner on software is the P3s. Their app, I have to say, is absolutely fantastic. You can turn off the noise canceling, you can put on transparency mode with 2 different modes, including a mode that makes it easier for hearing just people's voices. There's a variety of noise canceling options for different environments. I prefer the indoor mode. There's customization, of course, for the touch controls, and the best part out of all of it, you can customize a graphic EQ to make it however you want it to sound. This is probably one of the best features on the P3, which is great because they are the cheapest out of all of them. There's also a gaming mode which basically puts these into a low latency mode, but I wouldn't use that unless you actually need low latency because it can reduce stability with the Bluetooth connection. But overall, this app is insanely fast, it's very well designed, and there is a ton of options built in. Now, if we're talking about transparency mode, active noise canceling, convenience, anything like that, they don't hold up to the AirPods Pros at all, not in any of those categories. In fact, I decided to measure the active noise canceling performance in both strengths and the transparency mode of this IEM to see how it does. And I have some comparisons with these as well. Now, just for basic transparency mode, the green line is the source signal being played and picked up by the microphone. The blue line is the transparency mode, what it's picking up and passing through the IEM on the Nothing Ear 1. So if this was your ear, the green would be if you didn't have anything in your ear. The blue would be if you had the ear 1 in your ear with transparency mode on. These are both compensated measurements. This isn't the worst transparency mode that I've ever heard, but it certainly has a very unnatural timbre, especially because the low mid-range sort of attenuates and we have a bit of a bump in the very center of the mid-range. It doesn't quite feel right. And then some recesses in the ear gain region in areas where we would get like vocal presence and clarity, kind of around 2 kilohertz and up. It's a bit odd. Comparatively, the One More Comfo Buds Pro probably have the best transparency mode that I've ever seen outside of the AirPods Pro and Max. Can't believe I just said something nice about the AirPods Max. This starts to attenuate at 3K up. We see a bit of a roll off there, but from 2K down, this is spot on to how things sound in real life. That is an incredibly transparent transparency mode. And the Nothing Ear 1 just does not hold up. The P3's transparency mode is decent, it's on par with the Ear 1, however the software features enable it to have more than one transparency mode that allow you to focus on things like vocals, and it's pretty great. Moving forward into active noise cancelling, the Ear 1 has some problems. The tonal balance of the active noise cancelling is very far off. It does attenuate across the board, which is good. We see an overall ambient noise reduction, however, there's such a large spike at 6 kilohertz that no matter what you do whenever you turn on active noise cancelling, it makes everything in that region sound louder, which makes sense if you're trying to cancel out noise and part of a treble spike is 15 decibels louder than the rest of the world. That's not going to sound great. So you end up with a constant hiss that bleeds through music and everything else when you have the active noise cancelling on with the Ear 1. The light ANC mode is probably the most balanced for the Ear 1's active noise cancelling, and it does have less cabin pressure. Oddly enough, the maximum setting for the Ear 1 cuts out less noise than the light setting, but has more cabin pressure. And the reason is because we see much more attenuation in this 100 hertz region, which is not particularly useful. Things like airplane rumbling and everything else is going to go lower than that. And the mid-range suffers on the maximum mode. It doesn't get nearly as much attenuation. The light mode, we notice the spike at 5 kilohertz more, but the rest of the frequencies are attenuated in a way that is much more blanket, much more level. We still don't get great sub-attenuation, but I suppose it is better than just having nothing in your ears. No pun intended. If we compare the active noise cancelling of the Nothing Ear 1 to the Comfo Buds Pro, I really feel like they need a different name for these. It's kind of long. You can see here the source sound is in green, the Nothing Ear 1 is in red on Max, and the Comfo Buds Pro is in black. The Comfo Buds Pro suffers from a similar problem. It's not as bad as the Nothing Ear 1 because we don't see nearly as big of a spike in the treble. There is a bit of a bump in the mid-range, which, while not as noticeable as a treble region, because it is outside of the ear gain region is an area where our ears are much more sensitive to sounds. The bump on the Comfo Buds Pro is outside of that region, but That is still a bit of a bump. However, if you look at the sub-bass performance, crossing around 65 Hz and under, the Comfo Buds Pro perform a lot better. So you're going to see a bigger improvement on things like buses, on airplanes, in the situations where active noise canceling is a bit more essential. You'll see an improvement on the Comfo Buds Pro over the Nothing Ear 1, where they sort of fall short. The other problem being the noise floor. The Nothing Ear 1 has almost a 50 decibel noise floor in almost any testing environment I could put together. We're talking about rooms that are treated well in a box that is treated well, where you can pick up almost no ambient sound with a microphone, and these are still producing almost 50 decibels of background noise. That's enough that this thing almost needs active noise canceling for itself. That's not good. And on top of that, transparency modes and active noise canceling don't seem to work well for sounds like this, or for things like mouse clicks. If I have these in and I'm using a computer, every mouse click comes through louder than if I didn't have anything in my ear. That's not quite right, and I realize that's a software bug, something they could work on. Still, you'd think that things like this would have been caught before they shipped. And this isn't a problem that we have with any of the competition. Now, this also suffers from other problems with its active noise canceling and with its transparency modes, and I'm going to demonstrate that real quick on a binaural recording head. This is a Neumann KU100. It's a binaural recording head, and now you're going to hear the Nothing Ear 1. Right now you should be hearing me through the transparency mode of the Nothing Ear 1. Now you should be hearing me through noise canceling. I'm going to play some white noise, and you guys can hear the problems with the noise canceling on the Nothing Ear 1. So now we've gone through all that, let's talk about the sound. Possibly the most important thing about an audio product, of course, and the one thing that they seem to have completely forgotten about. Now, I'm not the kind of person to believe that a frequency response graph is the end-all be-all, and it's not. You should always trust your ears above everything else, but a frequency response graph, when it's showing something this drastic, can definitely help point out massive problems and support the things that we find with our ears. In this case, the Ear 1 is kind of a train wreck. I feel like the Nothing Ear 1 is a prime example of not putting any effort at all into your tuning and assuming, you know what, throw a little bit of bass at it, throw a little bit of treble at it, people will love it. And it seems that's worked for them for the most part. People buy this thing, they hear some really sharp, piercing treble and a little bit of extra bass, and they think, wow, this is revolutionary. The truth is, this is something that's been done many times before, and these are anything but new. Nothing, if you want to do something new, something revolutionary, give people an IEM that is as well tuned as the Blessing 2 Dusk. If you could make a true wireless IEM that is as well tuned as the Blessing 2 Dusk, that would be revolutionary. I would agree with you in that. All you've done here is make Raycons 2. Now, the stock tuning isn't great on the P3 either, but they allow you to customize the EQ. There's an app, you can go into it, and you can tune these however you want. You can't do that with the Nothing. You have a very limited number of presets that really don't help this thing's problems in any ways. If this had the option for a custom EQ, you could probably fix a lot of the problems with the frequency response. Then you'd just have to deal with the problems with the active noise canceling, the problems with the transparency mode, and the problems with the distortion and the noise floor. But that would still be a big improvement for listeners. If you want the most balanced sound out of the box, there is no competing with the One More Comfo Buds Pro. They are significantly better out of the box, enough to the point where I really didn't feel the need to even have a custom EQ for these, though they do have a lot of EQ options in their app. And maybe they'll add this to the Ear 1 with future software updates, but I'm not too confident in that. When I started having problems with this at the beginning, I actually reached out to Nothing's customer support and didn't hear back for weeks. In fact, I didn't hear anything at all from my original inquiry. I started talking about these on Twitter, telling people not to buy them, and once one tweet got a lot of traction, I got a DM from Nothing asking me to recontact their customer support. I did, and they basically said, well, it seems like they're probably fine. They said they would send me another unit, but all of the things that I presented to them sounded like just listening problems. Well, yeah, if I can't listen to it, it's a problem. If the active noise canceling has a channel imbalance from ear to ear, it's a problem. If the music I'm listening to is at different volumes in each ear, that's a problem. If one ear is in transparency mode and one ear is in active noise canceling, that's a problem. That shouldn't be normal. I am going to get another set of these in from Nothing. I'm going to test them out. If anything changes, I will make an update video. I'm not too confident at the moment. To make sure that it wasn't my phone that was the problem, I used these on 2 different cell phones and on 2 different computers. Now let's move forward and talk about the rest of the sound. These are very, very sibilant. I'm talking DT990 Pro levels of sibilance. They are bright, harsh, vocals are thin and distant, there's a very big scoop in the lower treble upper mid range, and then we have a boost in our bass. This makes them come across as muddy, sluggish, thin, and V-shaped all at the same time. So I can definitely see how a lot of additional peaky and sharp treble would give the illusion of additional detail to inexperienced listeners. Soundstage is virtually non-existent. It is comparable to your average cheap IEM that is not marketed towards audiophiles, so the cheap IEMs that you will get at your Walmarts, at your Best Buys, things like that. But your standard IEMs that are wired under the price of $70 will absolutely blow these out of the water, and the soundstage on the Comfo Buds Pro, as well as the P3, is considerably better. But I would say that out of the 3, soundstage is best on the Comfo Buds Pro, and none of them come anywhere near the soundstage on the AirPods Pro. Directional imaging isn't the worst on these. It does hold up. Imaging generally benefits from additional treble, so the imaging on these is reasonably solid. I'd say the imaging is slightly better than the P3s, not quite as good as the Comfo Buds Pro, and definitely doesn't come near the AirPods Pro, but the imaging isn't terrible. As far as timbre is concerned, I think you guys already know what's coming here, but the tonal balance of this is completely out of whack. There's no way you're going to get a natural timbre out of this, so things are always going to sound sibilant, they're always going to sound thin. So what's the conclusion here? The Nothing Ear 1 is a product that looks really, really cool. It's a product that had a lot of great marketing and a lot of red flags. It seems like the passion project of industrial designers who wanted to make something that looks different, but didn't really care about performance at all. In regards to this product, when it's not just sitting on a shelf, the Ear 1 is the very definition of lipstick on a pig. It's nothing new, it's nothing special, and it's nothing worth buying. If you want a great variety of features as well as decent performance and customizability, the P3 is an absolute no-brainer, and it's cheaper. And if you want something that just sounds great out of the box with no tweaking, the One More Comfo Buds Pro are the way to go. I'm honestly not sure which of these 2 I like more, so I'm going to be doing a full comparison and review at some point, and I'll give you guys an update. Either way, they'll both be linked in the video description. I also want to give a big thank you to El Jefe Reviews. He recommended both of these to me to try, and like usual, both of his recommendations were fantastic. This doesn't give me a lot of optimism about Nothing's future. This is their first product, but as a manufacturer, this is definitely not the manufacturer's first time building something. Overall, this does not make me optimistic for the future of Nothing's product line. It's a fashion product, and that's it. Maybe they'll improve on the build and function of things they make in the future, but I have a feeling that fashion products are what they're going to continue to make. Usually if you're a fresh tech company, you want your first product to be a strong opening, something that people are going to love, something that's going to stand out against the competition. And these really underperform against the competition in every metric possible. If these were, say, $40, I would definitely be more impressed. At that point, they would be a fantastic value. But at $100, that's a joke. I'm going to be sending these around to some more reviewers so they can check them out, and I think that is going to wrap up this video. So guys, if you liked it, please leave a like down below, a comment letting me know what you want to see in the future. If you want to get active in the community, you can at forum.hifiguides.com. As always, don't forget to stick around and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Until next one, guys. Peace.